Hey everybody, my name is Atlas, and I am here with you playing Path of Exile. Path of Exile is a recent release out of Grinding Gear Games. This is a action RPG, kind of the Diablo Torchlight style, like what of course many of you have played. However, Path of Exile, while it sits very true to that action RPG genre, has some unique elements to it, and I would really like to sit down and kind of show those to you. So I'm going to show just a couple things at the beginning here. This is the character creation screen. As you can see, it's fairly minimal. There's some kind of ambient noises going on. One thing this game does well is sound. You'll hear it as you go through. There's just lots of interesting, creepy, horrible things going on all the time. So I'm going to hit create. Now we're not going to actually make a character, but I'll show you kind of what the, I guess the animations for the characters look like. And every time that you select a character, they will talk to you and they kind of tell you their story. Now the character creation is very minimal. You're pretty much going to just look like whatever they are. I mean, it's similar to Diablo in that respect. Let's go ahead and hit create. Essentially, what's going on here at the beginning, all of these people come from some nation where they have somehow, whether they've done something illegal or been betrayed by someone, they've put themselves in a situation where they've been exiled from the rest of civilization. So they're all kind of standing here in the back. I like that you almost can't really tell the difference between them. I mean, obviously they're the only people standing and animated, but they're kind of in the back, overshadowed. But if you click on any one of them, he'll step forward.
I am a warrior. I was born to fight, raised to defend my tribe.
See, and they have a very interestingly kind of dark look to them. You've got people like the Shadow, who is this little bondage-looking type fellow.
Silence a big mouth, get a big head, and no one is going to be the wiser.
And this is about as far as character creation goes. Each character comes up, says their little spiel, and then they step back.
If only they had listened to their cowardice. Had they not taken my...
Character creation, very, very simple. It's very straightforward. You choose a name, you hit OK, and you start off a shipwrecked coast. However, I don't want to show you from the beginning. I'd like to jump a little bit further into the game, so we're going to jump on my witch here, who was the girl over on the right. She's a lot of fun to play. And we'll talk a little bit about exactly what it is that makes this game unique, because it definitely has a lot of unique features to it. So here we are. You'll recognize the very kind of Diablo-esque style of play. Now, one thing that is a little bit different that I cannot show at the moment, as nobody seems to be here, is that it does not have the kind of hosted server type setup that Diablo ran. Instead, everyone is on one world, more like a regular MMO. However, this only applies when you're within towns. As soon as you leave town, you are in an instanced version of your own world, very much like the original Guild Wars, anybody who played that. And of course, just like as we've generally seen with this particular genre, the world when you leave, the instanced worlds that you wander around in are of course randomized, and if you leave them for, I believe it is 15 minutes, they will reset themselves. Now, the appearance of every item I own is worn here, but as you can see, it's fairly minimal in appearance. It takes quite a while before you really get stuff that looks terribly flashy. I'm level 21 now, I believe. Yes, 21. The stat system is fairly simplistic. You've got 3 stats, and generally speaking, depending on what you're doing, you really don't need to focus in more than one. However, you absolutely can, and that's a part of the game that I will, of course, get a little more into as we go. You can do whatever you want. I mean, that's how the game works. So I have, 112 intelligence, which is actually quite low for my level. My friend Drycon is running a shadow who is, I think, 3 levels above me, and he's focused entirely on dexterity, and he has like 250. So how you decide to build your character really is up to you, and you can be stat-oriented. I could have decided to go for that, in which case I would have a much larger mana pool and a slightly bigger energy shield. However, I've opted to handle this a different way, which I will show you momentarily. So I'll go ahead and show you how the inventory works. Now, showing how the inventory works is more complicated than it sounds. Let me go.
Hello.
Well, I'll hold on to these. We'll grab them in a minute, and I'll show you how selling things
That would just
works.
make life complicated.
She likes to talk. So the inventory system. So it's fairly straightforward. You have something on your head, you have a weapon, you have an offhand, which of course is taken up if you have a two-handed weapon, 2 rings, necklace, chest piece, gloves, belt, shoes. Straightforward, easy to work with. But what are these little colored things in the center, you might ask? Well, that's where the game starts to get unique. Now down here at the bottom we have my skill bar. Left click, I just default attack with my wand. It's a nice little ranged attack. It's got quite a nice animation on it, and I will show you after we go over a little bit of the things in this game, because I feel like we need to sit down and go over it a little bit. The complex and unique things tend to be kind of subtle, but very interesting. I have a spell attached to my middle mouse button. This is the most common spell I use, and you'll see it when we get into the game. My right click is a fireball. I rarely use it. It has a long cast time and a slow travel. I am not good at hitting with it very often. Now, I have chosen to go a very necromancer route with my witch, which is absolutely valid. So I have raised zombie and summon skeletons. At the moment, I can summon 4 zombies and 6 skeletons. Zombies are permanent until they are killed. Skeletons disappear after 20 seconds. However, zombies require a corpse for me to raise the zombie from. Skeletons are just summoned from a portal. I also have Cold Snap. This I use a little more often than Fireball. However, the nature of the spell, I feel better having it on a letter key. It is just a little AoE instant blast that has a chance to freeze and does some damage. It's a nice little spell. I don't use it often. Really, my main things are Firestorm, Raise Zombie, Summon Skeletons. Now, it seems I have very few skills for a level 21 character. Now, that is where we go back to the inventory and talk about these crystals. These crystals, I'll pull one out, are called skill crystals. These are your abilities. As you can see, when I took that out, I lost that ability. Let me grab my summon skeletons. You will see the ability disappears. So you must actually equip what skills you are choosing to use. Now, what kind of skill you use has to go into very particular slots. So let me grab a red one, for example, that I can use. Abilities do have prerequisites. Most of them I don't have the strength for, because red tends to be strength-oriented abilities. So I can plop it in here, and suddenly I have Sweep, which swings a staff or two-handed axe in a circle. I do not have either of those, but I definitely have the ability. I just can't use it. You can drag it back out of there. And there's other things that go in with that. For example, you can see that these two are linked together. This means I can put a support gem here instead of a skill gem, and it will make this gem better. So this is my raised zombie, and this is my minion life. By having these two linked, my zombies have 32% increased maximum life. Right now I am holding a chance to ignite support gem in case I am able to get 2 blue linked sockets hopefully soon, and I will be able to add that to my Firestorm ability. And one thing I may be able to do is take these 2 red sockets and change their color to blue, and then I will have 2 blue linked sockets. And that actually leads me into the bartering system. How are those connected?
Hello.
We'll talk to this fellow and sell items. Well, actually, let me grab the things I left in here so we can sell more than one thing. As you can see, there's 2 linked blue sockets here. However, it requires a lot of strength to wear this gear, and I'm not focusing on strength. I want to be a pure damage and minion summoning type setup. And that's just what I've decided to do. It's fun to me. So let's sell this tribal mall and that. So as you can see, I'm not receiving money. There is no currency. Currency does not exist. It is entirely a bartering system based off of useful objects, which makes sense in a world of exiles like this, where it's just you attempting to survive. So what I've gotten is 4 transmutation shards. Now, there are many different things, and I'll keep feeding things into this. I got a scroll fragment. You keep feeding things into it, and you'll get more and more stuff. Now, for the most part, it's looking like he really just wants to give me transmutation shards, and that's fine. I can use those. Oh, and there are some alteration shards, and I will show you what exactly those do. So let's hit accept. This is a quest item. I have to hold on to it. So, in my stash here, I have a whole mess of these little items that they give you when you sell them things. So let's go ahead and drop them in there. Now, one thing you'll see is that it says stack size. When you hit the maximum stack size, it will upgrade to whatever it is it's supposed to turn into. Now, these are quite useful, actually. They allow you a lot of control over how your abilities, or I'm sorry, how your items work. So, for example, Orb of Transmutation upgrades a normal item into a magic item. I do not believe I have... Oh, this Pawa Amulet seems to be technically a normal item. As you can see, its name is white. So let's upgrade it. Yeah. It's a terrible, terrible item. I need to change it out for a new thing. But now it's got a little bit of increased energy shield and some fire resistance. That's one of the things they give to mage types. These cloth things that I'm wearing tend to have an energy shield associated with them rather than armor or evasion are the other 2 defensive stats. So this blue bar, or whitish blue, around my health bar is my energy shield. The difference between an energy shield and life is the energy shield will regenerate itself. Life does not. And the energy shield regenerates very quickly after a delay. So I can make a normal item into a magic item. I have many things with which to do that. I can change how many sockets are on an item, basically add a socket to it if I wish, which I may attempt to do that to my scholar's robe eventually. I'm not sure yet. Or maybe throw... Ooh, let's try something. Let's do something fun. Let me reforge the number of sockets. Oh, apologize. Okay. I now have a blue and a red socket. This is unfortunate because I can do absolutely nothing with that red socket. But that's okay. That's okay. Eventually you can get things that allow you to change the color of the sockets you have. So if I was lucky, I would have gotten a blue socket, and then I could use a Orb of Fusing to fuse them, and then I can throw my Firestorm on there and attach the chance to ignite. You see, it's kind of an interesting process of managing. I have picked up equipment that's better. I have picked up gear that's a little bit better, but I have to start making the decision based off of what kind of sockets it has if I want to take it. This makes the inventory system fairly complex, actually. It's a lot of managing and deciding exactly how you want your character to be. You are occasionally giving up stats for better socketing. For example, early on in the game, I was forced to switch and downgrade to different weapons because I needed better sockets to get more abilities on the field because my overall damage actually increased. Now this is actually a player. He looks like an NPC. This is a level 38 player. You see they start to look a little more impressive as you get into the higher levels. And so he's just hanging out in town doing whatever he's doing. He seems to be the king of BBW. How appropriate. So, I am now going to take you into the most intimidating and craziest looking part of this game. The skill tree. Well, that doesn't look so bad, does it? You know, you start here. It shows my current stats, and you follow these little skills around. However, as you zoom out, it just gets bigger and bigger. This passive skill tree is absolutely ridiculous. There are so many skills on it. I have no idea what I'm even looking at. I'll be honest, to even understand what I'm looking at, I look here. This is as far as I go, because for the most part, this is where I am. Each class has a starting location, so this is the witch. If you go over here, I believe this is the shadow. If you go down this way, this is the hunter, perhaps? I'm not certain. I am not... No, duelist, hunter. Templar warrior, perhaps? No, warrior, Templar. Now, how that works is that up here, you have intelligence. That is not 100% just intelligence stuff up here, but for the most part, you're looking at intelligence stuff up here. You're looking at dexterity over this way. You're looking at strength, I believe, here. So it's this big, so magic, dexterity, strength. And so the witch is the intelligence class. I can take her down other paths with that if I wish. I can have a witch go all the way down here if I felt like and just be some crazy axe-wielding person who, for some reason, started up here as a witch. It would be a little strange, but you can absolutely do that. I can wear any gear in the game if I wish to. I just have to make sure I have the stats to do it. So what do these do? There's so many. It can't be like a regular skill tree where they all give you some huge noticeable bonus. No. Each level you get a point, and occasionally from quests and things like that. Those points let you go down these paths, which give you very small bonuses. 12% increased spell damage. That seems like a lot, of course, but you need... the amount of percentage increased spell damage you get is off the wall. So, for example, how did I handle my character at the beginning? Well, I wanted to be a necromancer, so I looked around for the closest thing that was going to affect minions. That ended up being this section right here, Lord of the Dead. Minions have 10% increased life, 15% increased damage, and I could have 1 extra zombie and 2 extra skeletons. So, I shot up this way, picked up 10% increased minion life, 15% minion damage. And the interesting side effect of this is I ended up picking up quite a bit of mana regen here. Extra mana. So I have a 40%, a 20% increased mana regeneration, and an 8% and 12% increased mana. So I thought, what's another thing about a necromancer we see that's common? Well, they can actually be quite tanky. They're quite tough compared to many other mages. So I followed it a little further. Increase maximum life, increase energy shield, and a major increase in energy shield here. So that was to make myself a little tougher, which has proven to be invaluable. So then I decided, where was I going next? Well, there was another set of minion-oriented things here. 1 increased zombie, 1 increased skeleton, and some bonuses for them. So, I thought, which way do I want to take this? Generally, these long, thin ones just give you straight stat increases. So I got the 12% increased spell damage, went plus 10 intelligence, and then I could have continued to go that way and bypassed this entirely much more quickly, but lost the more specific bonuses it would give me. However, I opted to go through the center of it. Because I primarily use a large AoE fire spell, I began giving myself increased elemental damage, specifically fire. And I'm carrying that around. Now, there are so many different directions this can go. Say I decided to pick up a couple of daggers and go a slightly Shadow-esque route. I could take myself down this way and pick up some abilities that affect that. It's a very complex tree, but it lets you go wherever you want. If you have a concept for an RPG-style character, you can make it. There is nothing whatsoever stopping you. My wife, for example, thought, could I make a character like Ashe from League of Legends, a ice-oriented archer? Uses lots of frost spells and bows. And I said, yes, absolutely. You take... Honestly, you would probably be best off doing that with a shadow. as strange as that is. It would be a man, of course, unlike Ash, but you go down things that give you better projectile damage. You can do that. It's absolutely an option. You would have to follow it in a very interesting way. I think it would take some work, but you can absolutely do that. In fact, I might make a bow-wielding shadow just to try it out right after I'm done here. So that's enough talking about things. That's a lot of the unique features we've got here. So let's look at where we want to go. I'm going to go somewhere I have not actually been. So let's go this way. Let's go see what's over here. Now, I am a bit of a completionist in regards to these styles of games. I will take the time to kill every single minion in every single zone. And the way the games are put together, they reward that style of play. That's just how they are. They're very grindy types of games. I apologize. It seems there was a slight technical issue. I'm not sure what happened. As soon as we went to the loading screen, my game crashed itself. So I'm going to show you a little bit of the combat in here. Now, my witch is not good at fighting on her own. However, I can summon zombies. And who wouldn't want to? Fairly simplistic so far. Let's see if we can't find a mob. So as you can see, I need corpses to summon the zombies. However, the skeletons I can summon however I wish. And then we begin Firestorm. As you can see, for the most part, how this works for me is I set up a meat shield of zombies and skeletons. Oh, that seems to be a boss type. I will say one thing for these boss-type monsters. They run on the very similar setup to how Diablo handled it, in that it's, you know, a randomly generated set of abilities on a much more powerful monster. However, the abilities that they get are not terribly noticeable the way they were in Diablo, especially, you know, in Diablo 3, when you almost didn't have to read what abilities a elite mob had, because it was fairly obvious by the things it was doing to you. In this, usually you don't even know. There's a few that are a little more interesting, such as one of my favorites is Flicker Strike, in which they teleport around to attack you. I mean, that's noticeable. That's something you see. But for the most part, it's just they have something like extra health, or increased damage, or extra elemental damage on the spells they do. I mean, it could be any number of silly little things that they probably could have just coded in to already be part of that monster and give it more interesting abilities. Definitely not game-breaking, though. Now, I use this spell fairly consistently, and I've actually, a side effect of some of the things I did led me to be able to use this spell very well. The increased mana regen that I gave myself, instead of just giving myself straight up more mana, means that I can cast this spell effectively without losing mana at all. Oh, that's what that was. The shrines in this are a little bit interesting. I picked up a shrine and gained an ability where I'm now having fire land on my face for a while. It's a little strange, and it can be a little taxing on the machine when I have the fire shrine on, but that's okay. That's just my machine. I have a terrible computer. It's a good computer. It's just a laptop, and it's not terribly powerful. Let's find some more things to set on fire. Yeah, this may seem fairly simple, but depending on your class, your playstyle is obviously going to be a little bit different. I have opted for a Necromancer style of play, which means it's a little more thinking and a little less action. I'm constantly managing, which you can see up here in the top left corner, my total number of minions, rather than dealing too much with directly worrying about damaging my enemies. It's just a style of play I find enjoyable. It's not necessarily, or by any means, the only way to play this. Oh, one thing that happened over here. As you gain experience, so do your skill gems. That's essentially how they level up with you. So my raised zombie is level 6, however it has gained enough experience to level up. So let's go ahead and put another point on there. Generally what that does, leveling it up gives my zombies a little more damage and a little more health, which is nice because that compounds with the minion life gem I have on them, which is giving them more life. Now, one thing that's a little interesting about creating the zombies, you can make them out of effectively anything that dies. I have raised zombies from the corpses or from the piles of bones left behind when a skeleton has been destroyed. It doesn't make much sense, especially considering how fleshy and full of goo these zombies seem to be. Now, the game does have a microtransaction mechanic, as we've seen with many games nowadays. However, they've handled theirs in a very light-handed kind of way. For the most part, the microtransactions have very little effect on the actual game. In fact, most of them are purely aesthetic. Now, I don't even mean that that's costumes, because costumes are not a thing. It can be things to make your items look a little different. For example, you can get a thing that makes it so you can attach a razor mohawk to the top of a headpiece, because why not? Or you can make your items glow, or cause your boots to leave interesting footprints behind. For example, there's a vampire footprints where you leave little puddles of blood and little bats flapping around near where you walk around. I mean, it's fairly interesting, and I actually have one aesthetic thing that I picked up in support of the game, and that is on my Firestorm. Normally, it is just fireballs. However, as you can see, it is little metal cages, as if fired from some kind of horrendous demonic catapult. The reason I decided to get that is it is my favorite spell in the game. You can see I use it constantly. It matches the play style of what I do so closely, and I feel like there are always going to be skills and spells like that in this game. You're going to find that spell that you just say, this is what I wanted this character to do. Because there is a ton of variety, and you can do anything you want. For example, my friend mentioned earlier, he said if I felt like it, I could have my shadow start summoning zombies too, and when we're playing together, we'll have a little zombie and skeleton army, because that's absolutely valid. He can do that if he wants. It's easier for him due to his class choice. That's all it really is some things are just easier for you based off of whatever class you decided to pick. But that doesn't mean that it's out of your reach. It just means it takes a little more time. And there are always useful things on the skill tree along the way. It's rare that anything's going to be wasted unless you just honestly put it in something you don't use. For example, if I put on lots and lots of critical strike with dual wielding, it wouldn't make a lot of sense because I don't dual wield weapons. That would be wasted. However, there is always a pathway filled with things you can use. If anything, it can just be stat bonuses. I could just follow the little stat boosting thing around and gain tons of strength and have way more life than I normally would. The Crossroads. I believe I have a quest in the Crossroads, but we're going to run around a little bit and make sure we've killed everything for the XPs and the mad loots, of course. So I use my zombies to bunch them up as closely as possible and rain hell. That's what I do. I love this rain of fire. Firestorm is too much fun. It's just enjoyable to me. And I've got the sound down a ways, but usually I have it quite loud, and the spell has a good sound animation to it, and I'm a big fan. Oh, goodness. Monkeys. The monkeys resist fire. It doesn't really matter because I do so much damage that they die anyway. And an interesting thing is, it's hard to notice or get a strong feel for, but my minions do considerable damage. Okay, this I believe, is not a progression zone. This is somewhere I will go into, turn around, and come back. So let's show a little bit of what fighting indoors looks like. So when you enter a cave, you have a light ring around you. An interesting mechanic they've added to some items is some items can increase your light radius. I don't think I have any items that do that on me at the moment, but it is an option. I will say, the indoor places, many of the locations you find inside, are actually quite creepy. This one's not too bad so far, but they've done a very good job making lots of very subtle... oh goodness, that's a large whatever that is. There's lots of subtle ambient sounds that really help to give a strong, I guess the word ambience, to wherever you are. I'll say two places in particular. The Caverns of Wrath, which are at the tail end of Act 1, and the Weaver's Chamber. I remember those places. That's how good they were. They were creepy. They were very creepy. Caverns of Wrath, you'd walk around, and they did this fantastic little animation where ghostly figures could be seen at the corner of your light all the time. And it was fantastic. The ambience they've created is so dark. This, a lot of people have said, is the spiritual Diablo 3. And coming from someone, and I enjoyed Diablo 3. I truly did. A lot of people really disliked it. I enjoyed it. Does it have the lasting appeal that, say, Diablo 2 did? No. And we lost some of... well, and I think the biggest thing that we lost to Diablo 3 that I felt was important was the interesting mechanics surrounding abilities. Diablo 3, you could never make a Zealadin. You could never really even make a class that was terribly unique. That's the thing, is people remember very particular, very complex builds within Diablo 2. Let's level up my minion gem. And I was a big fan of things like the Zealadin, because I loved that all of these abilities could synergize in this incredible way to create something that visually almost broke the game. I mean, that's how it worked. Necromancers, and I don't know how far you can take it in this. You can have a fairly sizable minion army if you decide to follow the trees around enough, but you don't see in Diablo 3 swarms of minions, the same with the Witch Doctor, the way that you did with a Necromancer. You just don't. So Diablo 3, I found the gameplay very enjoyable, and I found the skill synergies solid, and I mean, it was a good Blizzard game. It was. It didn't have the same feel, unfortunately, and that's me again saying I quite enjoyed it. I played it a fair bit, actually. But, so when people say that this is the spiritual Diablo 3, I don't exactly disagree. In large part because another thing we lost in Diablo 3 was the dark atmosphere. I mean, it feels in a lot of ways even darker and gorier than Diablo did, than the original Diablo games. It is very dark. I mean, look at my zombies. They're just pouring blood everywhere they go. Why? I mean, it's just fantastic. Like, I feel like I've got this disgusting minion army. Let's go ahead and use a skill point. I am continuing to go down this path towards the minion life, so I'm going to pick up this +10 intelligence. Boring, but I'll take it. As far as respecking, it's quite difficult. When you've made decisions, they're fairly permanent. You do get refund points. I could go back 2 points in a tree if I wished and redirect it somewhere else. Those tend to only be good when you've made one... I mean, they're almost a save for when you misclick more than anything. They're not... There's my cold snap. They're not good enough to actually redirect the path you've taken your character down. Once you've decided to make a character a particular way, it's fairly unforgiving. you don't really get to change that too much. So it helps to go in knowing where you want this character to go. And I went in and said, I want a necromancer. And I happen to know a witch can do that. So I started doing that. However, if you have any thought on how you want to do it, I mean, let's take, for example, the idea of Ashe from League of Legends, of making a kind of archer frost mage of sorts. Your first thought is the hunter, but if you think about it, you're better equipped thinking about it from stats. What stats is that person going to use? Well, intelligence and dexterity, because it's their part mage, part... Oh, goodness. Oh, I have a quest here. I'm not paying too close attention to where my quests are, in all honesty. Let's get some more skeletons in there. Go away. Beastie. This is a quest. I'm pretty well equipped to handle. What's funny is the only thing I do poorly against with this character, the only type of thing it has trouble with, is individual major, like, end act bosses. Like, anything that I have to fight one-on-one is quite difficult. Anyway, I feel I've gone over Path of Exile about as much as I'm going to be able to do. There was a minor quest to kill the Great White Beast. I'll go ahead and portal back. A lot of things you'll see that are fairly familiar for anybody who has played the Diablo games. Let's go ahead and load through. Oh, there's all kinds of players in here now. I wonder where they all came from. I'll drop my map overlay. Yeah, these are all players, this little stash of people. I'll look at... I did finish a quest, so I can get a belt. Take the one with energy shield. I usually wear chain belts because they give you more energy shields. I'll go ahead and identify it. Now, when you're buying items, it tends to be with these scrolls of wisdom, by the way. Goodness, this is a terrible item. Oh well. So that's about I feel as much as I can show you with Path of Exile for now. Definitely jump on, definitely play it. If ever you feel like playing with me, of course, I am somewhere. Well, I'll put in the description which server I'm on. North American, I'll tell you that much. I don't really remember because I just hit the OK button when I went in. It didn't matter much to me. And this is my witch, Kayla, K-E-I-L-L-A-H. Add me in game, we'll play. It'll be great. It is free to play, pathofexile.com. You can load it up, and it's good and easy. Here's my other thing I purchased. So, thanks for playing Path of Exile with me, and I hope to see you in game. All right.